All right, so as you're very excitedly reading your ghost call report, you can see, right, there was 2 calls made and 2 form fills made. So 1 call was made during work hours and 1 call was made after hours. So if you're using an answering service, that's probably the answering service. And then the form fills, 2 form fills were done. 1 form fill made during work hours and 1 form fill made after hours. This way you can see, again, if you're using an answering service or whoever's monitoring after hours, whether it's a call or form fill, how they're doing, as well as seeing how your intake team is doing during the day. So, there's different components, right, to intake. The first we're going to talk about is technology, right? So, first of all, for those of you who have done this with me before, a number of you made huge improvements from where you were to where you are. There are some people that really haven't improved. So I'm not sharing anybody's results, so it's all private. You're the only one that's seeing your results. You're spending a lot of money on marketing. And if everybody was excited as I was, which it certainly seems, to listen to what Marcus is saying, and you want to put all this time, energy, and effort into what he's suggesting you do, the intention of that is to make the phone ring, or have a form fill come in, or do a chat, right? That's why we have marketing directors in the room. That's why we spent money to bring them here. If you don't master intake, right, you are throwing money out the window. Intake is just as important as marketing. Those 2 things go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. I mean, you're going to get a percentage of your marketing dollars by taking the calls that you get, but if you don't fill the holes, right, and you've all heard me say before, not all of you, but some of you have heard me say repeatedly over years, Patrick's been in mastermind groups with me for 8 years. Lloyd's known me longer than that. I don't know how long we've known each other, Lloyd, but the call center is like a strainer, right? And it's full of holes. Every one of those holes represents a different problem, right? Either we're not answering the phone and we let a receptionist answer and it then has to get put on hold and gets transferred. Either we don't have a way to track our hang-ups. We're not responding fast enough, right? Marcus talked about the 5-minute rule, which really obviously doesn't apply to your inbound call, but your form fill. So all of those holes, right, have to be found and have to be filled. For every hole that you don't fill, you have cases falling out the bottom. So Donnie said one of their biggest problems was their conversion rate, right? So if we look at our numbers, right, and so somebody said 90 something, he said his numbers are general industry wide, right? So his numbers are garbage. We don't apply his numbers to our acceptance ratio. No way. If anybody thought that 80% conversion is a good number, that is not a good number. So your call center, right, for cases you want, which we didn't really get him to say, right, what he meant by that 80%, because it's not always apples to apples when you hear people talk about different things in different industries. In our industry, if we've taken a call and it's a case we want, what percentage of those cases should we be signing? Who said? What percent?
96.
96. Patrick, what do you think? 95. Hugo?
Sorry, I was looking at this.
What percentage of cases do you think you should be converting on cases you want?
About 95%.
No, I mean, okay, 100%, I agree. We all want 100%. Definitely Ken would tell you that's not realistic because he doesn't even think 95 is realistic. So what were you in 2020? 88. Okay. So there are a number of things that change that, which we're going to talk about, right? So the whole concept he talked about the video and the time. So the goal is signing somebody on that first call, right? So the marketing slogan you've heard people say, 1 call, that's all. That applies to intake. right? We want to sign on the first call, but we have to be empathetic. We have to overcome objections. So there's a lot of moving pieces to train and focus your intake center on. But we're going to start with technology. So when you look at your report, how many people here says that they were put on hold? Almost all of you, right? Almost everybody. The caller got put on hold. I don't know why you're not raising your hands. We can all share, right? Almost everyone got put on hold. That is a hole in the strainer, right? I got in a catastrophic accident. Let's think worst case scenario. Catastrophic, right? The big case, the one you want. And you stick the person on hold. That doesn't work, right? Because they don't feel special. So you do all the things that Marcus told you to do on your website, right? All of that data, all of that information, all of those questions to make them feel special, to get buy-in. They choose you and they call you. Your receptionist, right, is the reason that they're getting put on hold because they didn't go to intake. Your receptionist's in a rush because you're overloading your reception team, whether it's 1 or 10. They're overloaded because they're trying to funnel calls to different places. They often don't give their name. How many people's report cards says no name given, right? If they don't give a name, right, and they obviously are not going to have any, I was in an accident. Well, what should be the first words out of somebody's mouth? So sorry to hear that. Oh my God, that's horrible, is what it really should be. But so sorry to hear that's good. But you want compassion. So imagine you're talking to who? This is how you train your intake people. You're having a conversation with your friend. How many people use scripts in their call center? Anybody? That's bad. So we don't want to use scripts because they sound like robots. Right? There is no way to use a script and not sound robotic. It's impossible. So you have to train them to the point where they just know how to have a conversation. So when that person calls, it's like talking to your friend. And if your friend called you and said, oh my God, I just got in a car accident, what would you say? Jeannie, that's horrible. Are you okay? What happened? Like just a normal everyday conversation. Not, please hold, or just hold, right? That's just not going to work. You're losing cases, I guarantee it. And I know it because that's what we used to do. We used to use a receptionist who then we figured out how then to bifurcate, and then we got to where we are now. So hole number 1, right, is putting someone on hold. A percentage of those people hang up. How many people have technology that if someone hangs up, your system calls them back? 1. Did you raise your hand?
Well, it's not technical. It's a script that generates something for our call center to call back. So
Okay.
It's not automated.
That's what ours is. It's not automated.
Okay, so 3 people, right? So there are 7, so in case you're trying to figure out, 17 or 18? Are we at 18? 18. 18 law firms in the room. 3 of you, which is fantastic because it used to be 0. So 3 of you have technology to call back. But you all have hang-ups. All of you have hang-ups. So if you don't have a system in place to identify the hang-up, whether it's manual or automated, if you don't have a system in place to identify the hang-up, what happens to that customer? It's gone. We are going to fast forward, and I'm going to tell you how ugly that is. So this is before we had a system, this is the money we were losing. Now that we have a system, in 10 months, we dropped 2,300 calls. 2,300 people hung up. Now, we're doing a shit ton of volume, but that's how many people hung up. Doesn't matter if it's 230 drop calls, whatever it is. We called every one of them back. Out of 2,300 people who hung up, we made 688 cases by calling them back. Do you understand the power of calling people back who are hanging up? right? So some of you have heard this from me before, and the reason I'm doing it again is because when I looked at the ghost call results, I thought, I want to give a refresher. This is hugely important, right? Huge, because what is that? So 30% of the people who hung up, 30% turned into cases. So let's just assume that's an equal statistic that you could apply to your law firm. Look at your call volume, take an estimate of how many hang-ups you think you get, and assume that 30% of your hang-ups could have been a case if you called them back. That's a lot of money, right? So this average fee, that's our blended average, right? That's social, because we obviously do social, PI, VA. So those 2,300 calls are a representation of all three areas. So $9,300 is our average fee for social, PI, and VA. And that's the money that we were losing, right? And now we're making it by calling them back. So how do we make sure, first of all, our first problem, which is getting the caller to not be put on hold? So we integrate our phone system, if we have a CRM in the middle, and our CMS. So some of you use, let's say, FileVine and Lead Docket. How many people have Lead Docket? Right, so that's your CRM tool, right? You also have a case management system. So when you have both, you have to integrate your phone system into both. If you're only in one, it's not going to do everything I'm going to describe for you. So we want to connect those three things. If we connect it, problem solved as far as volume, reception. The person who answers the phone is going to be your intake person, and then that person, if you could take pictures if you want, but you're more than welcome to the entire slideshow. So if that helps you from not taking as many notes, and you certainly don't have to take pictures. So why connect them? Obviously, single point of contact. We don't put people on hold. We'll talk about having the right person talk to your lead, create the best chance of conversion, lead to case. So for us, we do three different things. Your office, you do different things, right? So workers' comp, some of you, I heard, do med mal, right? So if you do advertising, right, for different things digitally, you should be able to identify when that call's coming into your office, because we use a DID number, right? So when an inbound call comes in, using a DID that was, for me, specifically for social or for VA or for PI, I have different people trained. So we have 4 teams, some that only do social, some that only do VA, some that only do PI, and then we have a group that does everything. Because obviously, depending on what number they're calling, I can't always tell what they were calling for. So if they're coming in from a number that I can't identify what they search for, they go to the team that does everything. But obviously, it's much harder to train somebody to do everything than it is for me to teach you to just do one thing. So normally we start you with social. And then when you learn social, then you learn a second skill. And when you're good at that, then we teach you the third skill, and then you're really qualified to do everything. I wish everybody could do everything, but it's more complicated. So, first of all, when the call's coming in, right, phone's ringing, we have a caller ID, and we have a DID. So the caller ID is what allows us to route the call, because the phone number comes in, and in a blink of an eye, it data dips. So we don't have a CRM, we just have the case management system, we use Smart Advocate. But so it's going to data dip and look to see if it recognizes the caller ID. If it recognizes the caller ID, what do you know? It's not a new client. Right? They're already in your system, right? So if they're in your system, the thing it's going to look for is, are they a client or are they a vendor? I use an IVR for vendors. I don't think that in the commercial industry, it's a problem to put somebody in an IVR, right? A phone tree. Thanks for calling Rob Levine Law. If you know the party of the person you're looking for, enter it now. If not, blah, 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 dial by name directory. We don't do that with clients, and certainly would never do that with a new client. But for body shops, doctors, insurance adjusters, they all know who they need to speak to. They're communicating with that person on a regular basis. I don't want to tie up my receptionist, and I certainly don't want that going into intake. So if it's a vendor, they get the IVR, they pick where they want to go, and off they go. If they need a person, they can hit 0. That goes to reception. None of that ever goes to intake. If the system does not, if the system recognizes the number and it's a client, right, because we all mark off in our system, client, right? So the system knows it's a client. For us, it looks at status. So the status of the call, of the status of the case, decides where the call is going to go. So if you have a team that does working on medical, or let's say works on finance, settlement, or you want them to be talking to a lawyer because it's a negotiation, based on status, your system can tell who they need to speak to. It automatically directs the caller's call to that person's phone. And then that person's phone rings, they don't answer, it goes to voicemail. If they're an impatient client, they could push 0 because they don't want voicemail, and then it goes to the receptionist. Never for us goes to intake. If it doesn't recognize the number, so they haven't called us before, then it goes directly into intake. And then whoever answers that phone, they're not supposed to ever put someone on hold. So we don't have attorneys review cases, we don't ask questions. They are trained to make a decision. And if they're not sure, they take the case, right? How many people have attorneys review cases? Some of you do, I know you do, because it says it on your ghost call. It says, well, I'm going to have someone call you back, they're going to take a look at your case. So having listened to Marcus, right, how many people do you think are going to wait to get a call back? They want an answer. They want an answer now. They're so impatient that they hung up when you put them on hold. They're certainly not going to wait for you to call them back and say whether or not you're going to take their case. I don't understand. So you've won me over as a client, you want me, and yet you won't even tell me you're going to take my case? That's the first thing that person should be saying. Oh my God, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Empathy, compassion, you've made the right decision. We have 50 plus years experience, whatever you want to say. We are more than happy to help you. Thank you for entrusting us to handle your case. Build that relationship, right? I like his video idea, but we'll probably do something like that for social and VA. We have a much lower conversion rate, right? So our conversion rate in PI, I would never want to send something out in the interim, I guess for the people we can't overcome, but it's a small number. But for social and VA, our conversion rate is definitely not what it is for PI. So I like the video idea, and I like that follow-up stuff that he was talking about. I thought that was smart. So, and then I guess for anyone we can't overcome their objection, we could definitely send the video. How many people liked his idea of the team, the scheduling, the pick on your website? I thought that was pretty cool. I'm going to have to talk to Werlanis about that project. That's not going to be an easy undertaking, but I have a few ideas. So if you believe what he says, right, I don't know Marcus. I know the person who referred him to me, which is the speaker who's speaking tomorrow. I've been working with Joe and Joe's company since 2018, I think. I was in Greece and actually saw someone from who you're going to see tomorrow, company, do a presentation in Greece. And I hired them on the spot pretty much. And I've been working with them ever since. Joe's the CEO of that company. Joe referred Marcus, they're friends, which is how we could afford him. Because if I didn't get a referral, there's no way we could have afforded him. So just so you know, he probably gets between, on average, 30 to 50 grand. And he speaks for often 1 hour. So he did us a huge ass favor. And he's like, well, so how long do you want me to speak for? I said, oh, as long as you want. He's like, well, you don't mean that. I said, you can have the whole day if you want to speak the whole day. He's like, well, how about 4 hours? I said, sold. All right, so I'm going to try and do the scheduling thing, which obviously only works for the web because I would prefer an inbound call. Always, I want to drive inbound calls, but not everybody's going to do an inbound call. Some people do form fills. I like the schedule idea because I know that people do form fills and then we call them from the form fill immediately and then they're at work and they're like, they can't talk. So now I love that scheduling idea. I think that's a great idea. I like pick your lawyer concept. No way we're having lawyers call people to sign them, but I like pick your lawyer. I think that's a great idea. And then it's going to have to say something like, the lawyer's assistant or teammate or whatever it's going to be will have to call you and go through the case with you. But I don't see any reason not to let them pick. We have enough pre-litigation lawyers that it wouldn't matter. It would work fine, I think. We'll try it. Okay, so we are going to connect, we're going to data dip, and we're going to decide, is it going to the IVR? Is it going to go to the person they need to speak to direct, or is it going to intake? Anywhere during that process, if they hang up, you need to build in your phone system, and this has nothing to do with your case management system. It's just part of your phone system. You need to build a tracker that's tracking hang-ups. So we call anybody back that hangs up after 15 seconds. Most studies say 20 seconds. We decided to do 15. 15 seconds is literally probably 2 rings. So it sounds like a lot of time, but it's tracking time from the connection before the phone even rings. So it's really 2 rings. If most people that hang up less than 15 seconds, they didn't want to talk to you. They dialed the wrong number, made a mistake, changed their mind, whatever. It wouldn't be worth it. There's a high percentage of those versus people who hang up after the 15. So we only call back over 15. You have to figure out with your phone company how to build that. Nothing to do with your case management system. It's just the phone system. Phone system identifies the hang up. For us, it then delivers that call to the next available rep. So there's always people not on the phone, obviously, right? So immediately calls it back. It tells the person in the call center, Mr. Smith hung up. Oh my God, Mr. Smith, I'm so sorry we got disconnected. I see that you just called 1 minute ago, right? And the person's astounded. And that's how we turned it into 688 cases.
Bob, what phone system are you using right now?
We use Ring Central.
Still Ring Central.
Yeah.
Rob,
Yeah.
approximately how long does the initial filtering process, or determines whether that contact's a file line or smart advocate, how much does that cost approximately build out Ring Central, for example?
So we've been negotiating, so we do it now for law firms, right? So we do it one-on-one law firm to us, our team consulting. So we keep negotiating with Ring Central, right? So we now have a team built at Ring Central that's our engineers at Ring Central. They're assigned to us. And then we have a team on our side. And then depending on the case management system, we decide who else we need. So like at Smart Advocate, we might use, anyone use Smart Advocate? You do, right? Yeah, anyone else do Smart Advocate? So like at Smart Advocate, we might involve Igor, right? Everybody knows Igor, right, for that Smart Advocate. At FileVine, we'll work often with Stephanie. Everybody remember Stephanie, right? So Stephanie, so she opened TechCow. Everybody saw that, right? So Stephanie and I are working together. I saw her yesterday. So, so depending on what case management system you use, sometimes we'll do it in-house, sometimes we'll use an outside engineer for the case management system, and then we'll use Ring Central. So if you're going to do it yourself, right, and you told them you were part of me, and I got them to give you my pricing, right, just for Ring Central's cost alone, just their cost. Right now, I'd say for the callback system, it's cheap, which is, I don't understand why you guys don't have it, because I've talked to Paul about it multiple times. It's probably only $5,000 for the script to have this phone system set up to call people back. For the entire integration right now, it's probably about $30,000. Which for us, based on our blended average case, which is just about $10,000, which would mean 3 cases. Yeah. But you're not on Ring Central anymore, right? You left, you're a dial pad.
We're not,
Oh, going to Zoom.
yeah, we're not off Ring Central yet, but we're building it out. So we can talk about it with them and get it built before we launch it.
Yeah, you want to make sure, number one, that you can integrate Zoom into Smart Advocate, which I don't see why you can't.
We got most of that done.
Oh, perfect. And then you want to make sure that you can build the system that calls back.
Yeah, the callback thing is the only part that we don't have.
Yep. It's the easy part.
The inbound call management was 30,000, or the what
The integration. So they assign development engineers. We've now built a scope of work with Ring Central, so the scope of work exists, right? And so now the engineer is assigned, and they have to build out inside your system our scope of work to make everything connect. And depending on, obviously, if it's a case management system that we haven't done it before, that's why you need an engineer from the case management system. Any other questions?
Is
No, most studies, if you read like different articles for call centers, whether it's law or any other call center, most articles actually say 20 seconds. That it's calling people back that hang up. If it's under 20 seconds, nobody recommends it because they usually made a mistake, dialed the wrong number, didn't want to talk to you, so it's a waste of time.
Well, different question, why is it taking that long to get to them? Is it because you have a volume at that time, you don't have any people available to answer the phone?
15 seconds, only 2 rings.
It's just 2 rings, that's all it is. So plus you're connecting from a tracking number to a different number, it takes some time.
Right, it's the connection, and then it's really only 2 rings. Yep. It seems like a long time, but all the things that are happening from when the clock actually starts to track, right, the system, it's only rang about twice. Okay, so we talked about the DID number. So we covered it. So everybody obviously has form fill because we all did form fills for you. You all have inbound calls. Does everybody have chat and text? Anybody not have on their phone a chat system that someone could chat with you? No, we all do. Oh. So the issue, right, if you look at your report cards, and we timed from when we first did a form fill to when you responded to the person. If you believe what Marcus said, should be under 5 minutes. Right? You should be responding in under 5 minutes. How many people responded in under 5 minutes? It's a very small number of you. Right? Patrick's proud.
3 minutes? 3 minutes?
Yeah. 1 minute, good job.
Show off.
We were 2 days. Guess fast, we did all along.
Well, some people didn't respond.
We didn't do that either.
Yeah. Well, 2 days is the equivalent of not responding, and not responding is not responding. So, you've made a choice. You can call me, you can fill out a form fill, or you can chat text with me. You gave them the option. Why in God's name would you not treat all of them with the same sense of urgency? Is one case worth more than the other? Your catastrophic $1 million case could be coming in by form fill, or it could be a chat, right? We didn't test chat, obviously, because anybody doing chat in-house? No. So, you are?
Yep.
How's that going? Yeah, we tried it once. It was a disaster. We literally built this pigeon thing, and it showed up, and it was a disaster. So I'm like,
We don't get a ton of volume via chat, but the Ring Central widget is super limited in like what you can do visually and interactively. Zoom's a little bit better, but it's still pretty basic visually.
Yeah.
You can't do the picture and the pre-video and all that.
right. So why are you doing it in-house?
No, I don't have a specific reason.
Okay. And do you have that feature turned on LSA?
You had messaging turned on in LSA.
You do?
Yeah.
So do you know what's your average time to respond?
On the messages, I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, so this is important, right? For those of you who are marketing directors, right? That time to respond to LSA will very rapidly sync your score. So if you are not responding quickly, you should have messaging turned off. It's better to be turned off, right, than have it turned on and screw your entire LSA profile. So either you do a really good job at it, or just shut it off. You're screwing, you are,
Like ours, will just take the phone number off it and call back and not respond in the system. That's also bad. And I've been catching them doing that. I'm like, you have to respond and tell them you're calling them as soon as you decide to call them, because then it doesn't register that you've made a contact.
so everybody does LSA, right? So for us, and most people that I hear talk about it, cheapest form of conversion. You want to improve how many leads you get? Cheapest way is open another LSA location. It's a phenomenal way to just keep growing. We just added another one, right? Did we just add one more, Werlani's? Werlani's not paying attention. So,
Question about that opening a new LSA office.
yeah.
When you're verifying that new profiler, you're sending someone out there physically to do a video of the new space.
No, I don't think we did. Did we do that with the last one? Yes, yep.
Yeah, so ours, the only option they're giving us is actually go and do the video while logged into Google. You can't do the phone calls or the postcards anymore.
The postcards never work for us because they're not staffed.
It's just a barrier.
Yeah.
Okay, we're opening an office in Rochester, we're gonna drive 4 hours.
Yep.
That's what I was gonna ask about that, because, we're also looking at another satellite office, and our agency has kind of been deterring us from doing that, because supposedly right now with Google, they're giving people a really hard time opening additional GMBs.
Yeah, they're
Is
doing,
anybody else experiencing that?
I am,
You are?
yeah, we just had one that we literally opened 10 miles from us. It's the exact same content for everything that we would have in our normal home office. We have the building, there's signs, we have space in it, and they're like, this content's in violation, and they shut it down immediately, and I can't get it resolved even though we have Google Reps.
The Google reps, I don't,
They just want stuff.
yeah, it's always, everything is an upsell.
Yeah.
Do they do
Yeah.
a postcard even? Do they send it?
We don't have that option anymore. I've heard some people that still have it. Ours is all video. It has to be done by video.
Yeah, and it has to be submitted as a live video as part of the catch.
Yeah, you can't pre-record it.
We moved an office like 2 miles in summer last year, and it took us a month to get the GMV updated. It wasn't even a new GMV, it was just updating the address, and it took us a month. Not it, we got it, but it took a month.
All right, so what do we take from this? We need to improve our response time to form fills, right? So, except for a couple of you. Great job. For everybody else, first question is, where are your form fills going? If it's going into your email, right, and they're monitoring whatever your phone system is, or if it's coming into your case management system and the form fill goes in somewhere else, that's the problem, right? So you can't expect an intake person to be looking at multiple screens at the same time. You have to coordinate everything to go to the same place. How many people have their form fills? Well, so how many people have your form fills going into your system that your intake people are using, whether it's your case management system or whatever else? So a number of you. So you have to figure out why you're not, for those of you who are over 5 minutes or longer, or didn't call back at all, or respond, need to figure out why that is, right? Where's the disconnect? And then you need to be testing. So, you know, I'm happy to keep doing the ghost calls when we do the in-person meetings twice a year. We won't do this, but I'm happy to give you the ghost call reports as part of what we do. But that's not often enough, right? So if you got a report card and you see a shit ton of problems, right, you need to start ghost calling yourself. Just get a Google number and you can keep switching the phone number and testing your team and see where's the hole, who's not really doing what they're supposed to be doing, what's the problem. So if you have an intake manager, that's part of the intake manager's job. If you don't have an intake manager, whoever your office admin could be doing it, right? Someone has to do it. Chat text. Well, I'll talk about it while we're here. So how many people are having their companies chat with someone and then say, you know, we have someone standing by who could talk to you right now, and convert the chat text into a phone call? No one? So you're chatting or texting with someone, and you say, we have someone who could, so your chat text company for you in-house, we have somebody that could talk to you right now. I can connect you to someone in our intake center.
Yeah, we manually push into a phone call every time.
How many people are doing that from an outside company, because you're all chat? 1, 2, 3. So how many of you are getting reports from your chat texting company to show every inbound call and how many disconnects or hangups they have? So we never used to, which is how I learned this lesson. So we didn't. I wasn't tracking their hangups. And when I started tracking it, and I looked at when the people were hanging up, it was at the point of conversion. So they said, hey, we can connect you to a person to talk to. Would you like to talk to that person now? People were saying yes. And then when they were getting converted for the phone to connect, they were hanging up. People who choose to chat or text don't want to talk, right? If they have time to chat or text, they have time to talk on the phone, right? We are created a generation of texting or chatting, right? Keep them there and sign them electronically. So in our office now, when we sign you, we ask you, what is your preferred method of communication? If they say texting, we'll take someone through their entire case and never talk to them, ever. No conversation. Everything is done by texting their case manager, their lawyer. There are people that we never talk to because they don't want to. I don't care. Whatever is better for you is what we're going to do. So if you're converting them to calls, make sure you're checking what your hang-up rate is when you're going to convert them. My suggestion is if they want to text, they enter it by text, sign them by text, and finish it that way. You'll have a higher conversion rate. Does that make sense? So we talked about connecting the three systems. UTM codes, just from a perspective, so when I talk about DID numbers, I talk about UTM codes, and I talk about being able to properly distribute where the calls came from, so you're keeping track of it. Does everybody use UTM codes in, for instance, their Google AdWords? Anybody not know what I mean by a UTM? Well, I'll just explain it. So a UTM code means you're putting this, we'll call it a cookie, right, on your pay-per-click ad. So when they go from your pay-per-click ad to your website and they fill out a form fill, and the form fill gets ingested into your case management system, you know where it came from, because you don't want, so if you're not doing that and you look at where your cases come from, you run a report, you're going to have a huge number of cases that say organic, right, or came from your website direct, and you're not going to give credit to all of your Google AdWords accounts because it gets lost in that transition. And then you think your Google AdWords company is doing a shit job, but the reality is you're just not tracking it. Does that make sense? The other thing is switching. So when the phone number for your DID number is coming into the website, right, whatever number that they display on the website has to change so that you know it's connected to where it came from. So if you're using CallRail and you're using, how many people use CallRail? How many people are using a pool of numbers? Are you using, yep, everybody? Perfect, okay. So if you're using a pool of numbers, same thing. You're getting that attribution to where the call came from, so it's assigning a number. I think the assignment is 2 hours, right? Anybody know the answer to that? I think a pool number gets assigned to a person for 2 hours. Do you know the answer? It's Warlanes, how long does a pool number get assigned to an individual user once they pull the number? Is it 2 hours? So when we assign a number out of CallRail?
Yes, 2 hours.
2 hours. So that number, right, automatically is assigned to that user and tracks them for 2 hours. Once the 2 hours is up, it goes back into the pool and it comes to the next, can go to somebody else. But this way, if they come out of your website, come back to your website, they're always going to see the same phone number for 2 hours, that dynamic switching. If you're not dynamically changing the phone number, then they're only calling one number that's always displayed on your website. How would you ever know where they came from? You'd always think that just came from the website. So you need to make sure you're changing that number. We talked about chatting and texting. So delivering the call to the best person. So we said our numbers, right, are going to come in. We don't identify the phone number, and we know it's a new client, and it comes into the call center. So if you have multiple people in your call center, who do you want taking the call? The best person, right? So you need to be, first of all, if you have different things, right, so we assign skills. So let's say English and Spanish. If so, you have some people who don't speak Spanish and some people who do. So depending on where your advertising came from, if you're tracking that it could be a Spanish call, you want to deliver it to somebody who speaks Spanish, right? So that's one thing you're looking at. If you do multiple things and you want that person to only be talking to someone who's qualified for workers' comp, or if you're doing med mal, or however else, what other areas you're doing, you want to direct it to that person. So that's the first thing inside your system when you're tracking the calls. Make sure the phone call goes to the best person, what each person is doing. So if you're doing that, then you know who's the best and who's the worst, right? So you want to give every available call to the best person, always. They have the highest chance of conversion. So people say to me, well, is that fair? How are they going to get better? That's not my problem. So we work on a commission system, right? So the better you are, the more money you make, the more calls I'm going to give you. So my number one person, she's like a rocket ship. Like, I don't think the phone's never attached to her ear, but she's friendly and caring. She's been with me, I don't know how long she's been, 6, 7 years now, which is a long time for an intake person. They get burnt for sure. But she, I think last year, I don't know what she made in 2024. 2023, she made $85,000. She has a high school diploma. That's it. But she just loves people. People love her. She knows everything she needs to know, and she just churns them out. And if I look at our scoring, obviously she has the highest score, right? And every time she's not on the phone, her phone is going to be first to ring because she's the top scored person. So we score everyone in the call center.
Do all of your intake reps speak Spanish?
Not all of them, no. She doesn't.
So how do you tell if it's a new client that they speak Spanish? 'Cause what if
You
they
don't
transfer
always.
to-
Yeah, that you don't always.
That's like, they would just have to transfer it to.
That you'd have to, yeah, right. Because obviously you're only going to know if based on the, like obviously we do Spanish advertising, right? So that we would know. But if it just comes in on a regular line and they don't speak English at all, then I have no choice but to transfer. But most are, I would say, because I don't know, in our intake center now, I think we're at like 50 people in the intake center, and probably 95% of them are international, so they're all bilingual. Yeah.
What does your base plus bonus look like?
What?
What does your base plus bonus look like?
So in the US, their base, I think, is $18 an hour. Their bonus is $17 for every signed case for the first, I don't know if there's a thing on that. Nope. So for the first 18, for the first 8, so their goal is to sign minimum of 8 cases per week, right? In that range of 1 through 8, they make it's actually $17.50, I think, $17.50 per case. If they get to 9, which is their stretch goal, right, it goes up $3, but not $3 for the 9th case. 1 through 8 plus call number 9 is worth $3 more per signed case. If they get to 10, it's worth $3 more, 1 through 10. If they get to 11, 1 through 11. So if you're a high performer and you're signing 15 cases in a week, you make a lot of money. International, we originally when we said it, we said to international people, and this is why our intake people never leave internationally, they also make $17 per signed case. So they make a shit ton of money. Because imagine living in Colombia. Right now, their base is different. So their base is, I think, 2,500,000, I think, COP, which is like $600 a month. And Peru, it's 2,500 soles. The Philippines, I don't remember. And so, but their commission, right, is, imagine, that makes them a lot of money. So they live well, the people who are international that are in the call center. No, they don't. If I'm going to place them in someone else's law firm, they don't know. We don't discuss it with them. Yeah.
Hey, Ronald, so how do you get your top person to call? That goes through your call algorithm or whatever it is. It goes to that top person first.
Yeah, so the inside the ring, so this is in Ring Central. So in Ring Central, we have a dashboard. And so I can program skills, bilingual, they do just PI, or they do PI, social, and VA. I can give them a quality score, so I think we score them 1 through 10. And so there are 2 or 4, I think we go by 2s. There are 2 or 4, 6, 8, or a 10. And so when a call comes in, first it looks for skill type, like what is their ability to match the call, and then it looks who's not on the phone and who has the highest score and delivers the call to that person. So, use of a queue. How many people are using a queue? Like a hold system? 1, No one. So what happens if everyone in your intake is on the phone? Where does it overflow to? You what?
Excess non-call center.
Oh, so it goes out.
If it's a potential client, yes. If it's an existing client or a vendor, no.
Okay.
It goes to a voicemail system.
What else? What is anybody else doing anything other than that? Did everybody hear what he said? So if they are intake center, let's say they have 10 people in the intake, if all 10 are on the phone and it's identified as a new client, then it bounces to alert.
Yeah, we're still doing a reception, so we're not going straight to intake. All the intake agents are busy, then just bad things happen because they're told to send it. So it goes to the next attorney who's willing to get on the phone, which can take.
A long time. Okay?
Ours goes to staff for us, it's all hands on deck. A new lead is for us to go and grab it, call it.
Okay. So we used to do that. We used to do overflow. So we let, if everyone in intake was, this was not when we were as big as we are because we've been locked down for a long time, but we used to overflow to other people in the office. But the problem with that is if you track the overflow, right? So first thing that happens is people leave their desk, right? So the system thinks they're there, but they're not actually there because they forgot to tell Ring Central that they were not going to be at their desk. And now it either has to ring to everybody at the same time, which is a disaster. How many people do that? Your phones just ring to everyone. So the problem with that is oh, I'm busy. She'll get it. No, he'll get it. No, they'll get it. And nobody answers the fucking phone, right? So that's bad. The problem with the one person at a time is, imagine being the caller. So in almost all of your offices, first they got a receptionist who was short, didn't give their name, made them feel used, and then they got transferred and the phone was ringing because now the intake center was busy. So then it rings to Susie and she didn't answer the phone. And then it rang to James and he didn't answer the phone. How long do you think that person's going to sit there listening to the phone ringing as it's transferring around? And you have the same problem with alert because intake doesn't answer, right? And then it has to leave your building and go somewhere else. Not ideal in my opinion. We've tried it. There's too many hang-ups. So our call center is locked. So if it's coming into the call center, it doesn't ever leave the call center. That's our the way, I think we've been doing it 3 years maybe. The call center is locked and we use a queue, which is not great, but you can never answer all the calls, but it's friendly, right? It's informative. It is like a commercial system. So I think our average on hold time is 20 seconds in the queue. So the queue tells you at 20 seconds if you've been going to be on hold longer than 20 seconds, and the system is somehow internally tracking what it thinks the wait time is going to be, it will tell you. You can choose to wait, or you can press 1, and the next available person is going to call you back. So they can hang up, and then as soon as someone's off the phone, it automatically sends them there. For me, what I like about the queue system, though, is we can jump calls. So if there's a PI call, a social call, and a VA call, but social came in first, which is the lowest dollar value out of my 3 cases, right, Social Security, I can skip that person, make them wait longer, right, and take the PI call first. So it gives us control over making sure that the most important calls get answered first. So even if an inbound call is coming in, someone's on hold in the queue, rather than taking the PI call, putting them in hold, it just skips them completely and gives the PI call to the next available person. Because I mean, if I lose a Social Security case, I'd rather lose that than a PI case. But obviously the goal is to staff intake right at that number so you have a very low percentage of people that go and hold, and it's something we're always monitoring. But it's my opinion, it's, you know, opinions are, you know, like assholes, everybody's got one. My opinion is that that's better than overflowing. The overflowing thing, we've tried it, I don't think it works, especially when you're all in different areas, or if you're remote, forget about it. Like we're 100% remote. Then, right, everybody always assumes someone else is going to answer the phone. They can't even see each other, right, in cubicles. But even if they're in cubicles, who knows who's not sitting in their cubicle, they went to the bathroom, who's having lunch, who just doesn't feel like answering the phone at the moment. It doesn't work well. This we talked about. So this is cheap to do. Literally, I think Ring Central now is charging us to implement it for someone like $5,000. So you should all be contacting your phone companies, and I said this to you last time we were together, so I'm saying it again. If you haven't implemented it, which I think 1 or 2 people said they're doing, maybe 2, everybody else, call your phone company, whoever your provider is, right? The agency that maintains your phone system, and figure out if you can have this designed in your phone system. So you know when someone hangs up and you call them back. If not, my suggestion is fire that phone company and hire someone else who can give you this technology. Because you all have hang-ups. I mean, there's just no way that you imagine that you don't have hang-ups, right? You're all using a receptionist. So you're all putting people on hold. And even if you're not, I don't put anybody on hold, right? And we have hang-ups. It's just they didn't want to wait long enough, right? The phone's ringing. They didn't want to wait. They hung up. So get this technology built. Okay, so we've created our technology. We have the best system in the world. My intake person is answering the phone. So this is where active monitoring, coaching comes in. If you are not coaching, listening to calls, making people better, then you're not going to be at, what I heard 96, I heard someone say 95. You're never going to get to that number, right? So there are people in this room, I guarantee you, that are in the 70 percentile. That is a huge difference in income between cases I want and cases I sign if I'm in the 70s and I want to get to even, say, 90. Let's say that's our goal. That's a big difference, right? So overcoming those objections. So you need to make sure you're training your people in intake. So for those of, how many people have an intake manager? Who doesn't? Make that easier for me. So 1, 2, 3. Everybody else. Okay, so for the intake managers, are you listening to make sure your people are, how many in the room are intake managers? 1, 2, okay. So when you go home and you sit with your intake manager, you want to make sure you're impressing upon them what their job is. Their job is not to just take phone calls, right? Now, sometimes our intake manager probably answers the phone, but it's rare. Their job is coaching and listening to calls. I think we have 3 now, managing, and then some team leads. And so they have to pull calls, right? Sit with the person and listen. I would have tried this, and how about that? And why did you say this? And this could have been done better. Every call could be better, right? We are all learning, right? There's always ways to make it better. If someone's not spending the time looking at the numbers, pulling the calls, you're not going to make them better, and you're never going to get to 95%. It's just not going to happen, right? So as owners or COOs, right, ghost call yourself and listen and just see how your team is actually doing. Are you happy with the way they answered the phone? Are you happy with how they made you feel? Have your friend do it and listen on speaker and see what happens. Some of you will be like this. That's what we said? That's how we respond? That's the answer we give? The only way you're going to find out is by listening to calls. So goal, 95%.
Yeah, quick question. So, doing the intake process, what are most of y'all getting the client agreement to sign? When they're on the phone? Yeah, and when you're on the phone, it's like in the beginning, it's at the end.
Well, that's the last thing you do. Mm-hmm. So it's greeting, right? What happened, right? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Then interrupt. name and number in case we get disconnected, then listen to the story. So really, what do you need to know? So when you look at your cards, a lot of you are asking all sorts of questions like, well, where did you go for medical treatment? And does the other driver have insurance? And all these kinds of questions. Does that matter? And most likely, are they going to know? No. What do you need to know? You need to know, is someone else at fault, right? Is it your fault or was someone else at fault? And you need to know if they're injured and do they plan to treat, right? We didn't used to check on plan to treat, but now we do because I don't want property damage cases. And if you're not going to treat, your case is useless. So that's really all you really need, right? So it's empathy, compassion, listening, qualify. Okay, tell them, we would love to be able to help you with your case. You made the right choice, right? And then explain the process. I'm going to either email you or text you our contract. We're going to go through it together. When that's over, in our office during business hours, we live connect you to a case manager, and they're going to take you through the entire intake. They're going to get all the information for you to build your case. We're going to explain the whole process. If your attorney's available, he'll talk to you now. If not, we guarantee he'll talk to you within 24 hours. And then you send them the contract. So a number of you, first of all, didn't tell the person that you were going to take their case. You said you'd have to get it reviewed and call them back. Those of you some of you didn't send contracts. Some of you sent a contract but didn't stay on the phone with them. So like they're going to fill it out on their own, answer their own questions, and then you hope they send it back. So any one of those things is one of those holes in the funnel, right? So if you're going to review their case, you're losing a lot of calls. If you're going to send them the contract and hope that they fill it out and send it back to you, guaranteed some of them just aren't going to do it because they're going to read it and not know what the hell they're talking about. They're going to get frustrated and call someone else who will be happy to explain the contract.
Curious, because I know you're high volume and you're how your intake team is making decisions quickly. I know sometimes, they're in doubt to, go ahead and sign it up anyway. Do you ever get pushback from the attorney and say, hey, why did we receive a large amount of, withdrawals? We should have never signed these cases up. Because, it takes a short window to make these decisions quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Not all cases are going to be slam dunks from the very beginning based on the information provided.
So the attorneys recognize that our job in intake is to sign cases. Not every case is going to be a winner. Sometimes there's no insurance, and that's certainly not the fault of the intake person. Sometimes when we actually get the police report, it says the exact opposite of what the person said on the phone. And they say, we're a little confused. You said they hit you, but you took a left turn in front of them. Well, I did, but they still hit me, right? Which our intake center should have figured out. But the story, they didn't explain it well, whatever. We drop it, right? It's not indentured servitude. You can't make me work for you. So we spend how much money on marketing, right? And then we spend how much money on intake. It's much cheaper to send a letter and call you and say, I'm sorry, we did the best we could. We did a job investigating your case. We did this and this and this. And it turns out we don't believe that you have a case that we're going to take, and this is why. Doesn't mean you don't have a case, just we're not going to pursue it. I never tell somebody you don't have a case. Just tell you it's not something we're going to pursue, and you should be aware of the statute of limitations generally means this, and you should call someone else immediately.
So you typically have a higher withdrawal rate, just based on the nature of how they're sending up cases?
Well, when you say a higher withdrawal rate, it's certainly higher than a boutique law firm that's only looking for catastrophic cases, or it's higher than somebody who takes probably 2 days to review and gets the police report and reads the police report and not just make the decision off the person on the phone. Absolutely. But we don't let people sign junk.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so it's a balance. Yeah.
We had talked, we have a bonus system for intake, and they get bonused on them signing, right? Some of the attorneys wanted to bonus them 30 days in to make sure that the case sticks. Feedback on benefits of either one of those models?
My job as the intake person is not to make sure the case sticks. That's your job. Cases don't stick because we give shitty customer service. Cases don't stick because we find out something later that the intake person never would have known. Let's just say no insurance. Well, you're going to make me. So I had empathy. I had compassion. I explained to them. Everything was done perfectly well, but you're not going to pay me to do my job because it turns out that shitbag didn't have insurance on his car and the defendant didn't have insurance either. Just not fair, right? So the $17 that it cost me, right, for cases that turn out to be nothing means nothing in comparison to the number of cases we sign.
You could tell by Daniel's question, I mean, the attorneys are getting mad that we're signing all this stuff, right? And I'm sorry that that's your job security, but,
Well, that's the key. The attorney, do your attorneys on commission?
yeah.
Right, so it's the same thing. So they just have to understand it's just the exact same concept. They're on commission. They're driven to build your caseload so you have a commission, right? And that's our goal, right? And some of those cases that you probably, if you carefully screened a little more, maybe we could ferret out some of the cases that we signed that we shouldn't have. But we would also undoubtedly lose cases that we end up taking that turn into a 7-figure case. Because, it didn't really sound that great up front, but you know what? We work it, we figure it out. Holy shit, look at this, what it turned into. You just never know.
What about in-office sign?
The what?
When you sign them in office, do you give them bonuses? The person who did the sign up?
You mean if it's a walk-in?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
He asked if they walk in. Now, we don't have very many people walk into our office, but some do. So, and yes, someone who's going to meet with that person and sign them, absolutely. Which,
All our controls a long time ago is basically you'd rather stop the chase than to sit there and say, let me think about it, let me talk to the attorney, and everything. Then they're gone to the next person. If you don't sign them right there, they're gone. So if you think your law firm is that good that they'll call you back and they'll wait around for a couple days till you decide whether you're going to do it or not? No, they call the next one and they're gone. And so, yeah, it's so much easier to draw. So we tell the attorneys that maybe we should have taken that one. Hey, what about the big one you might have not gotten because they analyze the shit out of it?
so the one call, that's all. That should be the mantra. That is the goal. Because this whole section we're going to talk about, which is chasing. What happened? So the whole chase process, the only reason you're chasing is because your intake center screwed up in the first place, right? You wouldn't have to chase. You wouldn't have to chase if we signed it on the first call. And the chase process is time consuming and it's expensive. Why did it stop working? Okay, so any other questions? All right, so our goal is 95%, right? That's what we want to measure by. So, and that's for PI. So our social and VA is definitely not as high as PI. But PI, that's your goal, is 95%. It's attainable. I know that Ken's not sure that it is. It's attainable. Now, I guess, because I was thinking as Marcus was speaking, right? So, how many people are branded in their market? Branded, you're branded, right? TV, who does something to brand themselves, right? So I think branded versus unbranded. If you're unbranded, this is probably a much harder number to acquire, right? So which is why when I talk about marketing and I talk about strategy and somebody said they're getting all of their cases by buying leads, right? Did I hear that? Somebody tell Marcus that? Or was I hearing things? I thought I heard somebody say that all of their cases are coming from buying leads. So,
Oh, yeah, the lead gen, and all that stuff.
yeah. So obviously when you're getting people who don't know you, which is why our social and VA is harder, right? Because I take Social Security and VA cases anywhere in the country. it's harder to sign them because they, first of all, with all of the problems that we have today, right, people think it's a scam. So some people come to us and they say, oh, I thought I was calling the government. And like, are you retarded? Does it say .gov at the end of my URL? Like, how did you think that? But like the shit that I hear people say, and then the things people accuse us of, crazy shit. But so I think that if you have no brand, no name recognition, and you're getting someone cold from a digital Google ad, it's probably harder to get to 95%. I never really thought about it, but I was thinking about it when Marcus was talking, and when I thought I heard somebody say that they buy leads, only leads. So, but you're branding because you're doing TV. Yeah, so for you, 95% is attainable.
Yeah, I think it's probably time to start looking at upgrading our intake managers. I think that's part of it.
That is the skill of so our intake manager, you all know Jeff, right? You've all seen him on calls. He's been with me now 8 years. There's a huge difference in the intake manager, no question. That person's skill set for training the team, right? Teaching compassion, teaching empathy, teaching how to overcome objections, listening to calls, correcting people, making them better. That's 100% their job. And if you don't have someone great at it, you're definitely not going to have a great team. I would agree.
Yeah, she's great at assigning conversion percentages. First one was really high, and Peter comes to me, just to promote her because of that.
So because she was great in the call, yeah. So did everybody hear what he said? So she was a great rep. Her percentages were super high, right? But that definitely, I'm sure we can agree, doesn't make necessarily for a great trainer, right? So often you look at professional sports and we look at coaches. There is a lot of coaches who were not great players, right? But they're amazing coaches. So my younger brother is a tennis pro. So he was good. He went to college and he went to a Division I school, but he could have never played professional tennis. He's gotten 3 kids that he's coached their life into the pro circuit. No way he could have, but he just happens to have that eye. So when he's coaching someone, he can see the little slices and pieces and say, turn this foot a little bit, turn your wrist a little bit, change that a little bit, and he can really make someone better. No difference in intake, right? Being able to explain and listen to the call and say, try saying this, or you should have said that, or did you think of this, and be able to really coach someone. Definitely hiring the best person in your office to do a job doesn't make them a great manager.
Quick question. When you're hiring a team from overseas, like South America, like reps for intake, and I know you have an amazing training program to put your team through. What is the learning curve? What's the time frame learning curve until they're like up and running? And,
So 4 to 6 weeks is how long we train somebody for. So for PI. Right? Social takes longer because there's just a lot more to learn and a lot more to know. But so for PI, so they first go through literally just class. So they sit in a class and they learn PI. So they understand what a case is, right? What is negligence? What all the things they need to be looking for. And then they learn contracts, how to explain a fee agreement, right? All of the basics. Then they get assigned to a mentor. So it's a one-to-one relationship. And so for a day or 2 days, they're just listening to the mentor, sign cases, and go through it, and ask questions. And then, that's it. Time's up, time to do it. And so the mentor is live, right? So they're both on the call at the same time. And so if that person needs help, the mentor just steps in and tells, oh, we're training this person and they're learning, and my name is Susie, and I'm here with them as their coach, and from time to time I might step in and ask a question, explain the whole thing, and then they're just listening. And so then they're debriefing after the call. So you said that, and they're taking notes, and right, so you said this, I would have said that, and you didn't ask this, and I would have asked it that way, and you didn't have enough compassion, and blah, blah, blah. And so the class is probably a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, and then some people within 2 weeks, they have it down, and they're ready to be on the floor. Some people need 4 weeks. We don't usually go much longer than 6 weeks. We've had a couple people, I think, go 7 or 8 weeks, but not very common. If you don't get it by 6 weeks, generally our position is this is just not the job for you. So we have about in the academy across the board, it's about a 20% washout rate. So we fail probably 20% of the people that we put in, which sucks because the case manager is 12 weeks in the academy, full time, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. But if you have to graduate with a 90% on your final exam. If you fail the final, we'll coach you, we'll go over the things that you didn't do well on, and we'll give you one more try. Different final, different questions. If you can't pass that final with a 90 or better, you don't graduate. Yep, so you have to want to help people, which is really across the board in all our positions. In intake, you have to be driven by money, right? So you're a salesperson, but you still have to want to make an impact because, you're talking to people, especially like in Social Security and VA, you're talking to some very downtrodden people, right? And so, especially in social, you could be both mental and physical. So we're looking for the personality trait that matches. We actually just talked about doing some different testing to see if that's going to help us better select people. We haven't started it. But so we look for that. We look obviously for people that have job loyalty, right? They've stayed in a position for a while, not job hoppers, all that kind of stuff. The salespeople, though, they are driven by money for sure, and they just want to help people. Those two things. Yep. Case managers, compassion, empathy, want to make a difference. They don't need to be salespeople, but they need to be able to talk, right? Comfort somebody, have good communication skills. So we also have day in the life videos. So you watch a video of what the position you're taking is like. So I think it's a 20-minute, we're needs to make that 20-minute video, which goes through everything they do. They get to listen to phone calls, they see paperwork being done, all that kind of stuff, so that they truly know what they're getting into.
That's great. That's good to know for onboarding, especially, Mm-hmm. I think onboarding is kind of a missed opportunity for a lot of firms sometimes. So kind of setting them up for success. This is information, this is what to expect, this is the agenda, and that's good.
Mm-hmm. We're rolling out 2 new programs, right, as part of, looking at our culture. So this year, 2025, we have 3 goals: growth, leadership, and culture. So those are the 3 things we want to accomplish. And so one of the things that we learned, we did focus groups throughout the law firm. Outside company, we use Shift, did focus groups. So different groups of people giving us feedback on lots of different things. So one of the things people talked about, and I'm bringing it up because you said onboarding, right, is everybody wants to know what their opportunity for growth is. It's like just resonates throughout the whole law firm, no matter what position they're in. So we are created a program called Emerging Leaders. And so that program is designed after you've been with us for at least a year, right? So you can apply and different things that someone's interested in. Maybe they want to become a trainer, or maybe they want to become a team lead, or maybe they just want to switch roles completely and do something else. It puts them in a position where they get to try different things, and we start utilizing them in different skill sets. So if they want to be a team lead, we'll let them run a mini training on something. And so the value to us and to them is, the goal is I'll always have a cadre of people who are ready for the next position. It gives people the ability and vision to see growth opportunities, and we're always able to be moving people along. And then the next level of training is leadership opportunities. So we've now trained all of the team leads in our base leadership class. So Monty's team went through a leadership training class we ran for them. And so our goal is to train everybody on the leadership and then create that next level of opportunity. Same thing. So if you're a team lead and you want to become a manager, right, the next level up, we're giving you different skill sets to demonstrate your ability to grow. So number 1, you feel like you're on that path. And number 2, I'm evaluating you, right? So my friend works for the IRS. And so you have to be, so she's in their call center. And so to be into the next role, you have to be in the call center for, imagine, 4 years before you can get promoted. But they have like an emerging leaders program. So if you have shown interest to want to be a supervisor, then they're putting you in different skill sets. So they're letting you be a secondary to a new class comes in. You can be a second person in that class. So there's a lead trainer you can help as be the second person. They let you run little training classes once a week during your groups, and they rotate it. And so they're evaluating you and giving you written evaluations. And so that's part of then when you apply for a job, if you've been in the program, they look at all of your shit and they already know, yes, this person is promotable, or no, they're not. And you're getting feedback, and so they're building you throughout your career as you're training, right? So you can't apply till 4 years to be the team lead, but you early on can be building the skill set for it. Yeah.
Hey Rob, the best solution I'm headed towards with intake is, we had someone internally and she wanted, kind of elevated her to relationship manager, case manager, so she kind of runs hybrid and our volume is not terribly high. But if we were to hire somebody from Top Notch that was trained, our receptionist would have to, if it's a new call and potential new case, would have to transfer it down to him or her, and they'd field it, and our volume's not that high, our leads aren't huge, so we cross-train them and some other admin stuff. But how long is that transfer? You know, Ring Central, just garden variety, from our office in Maryland down to our dedicated intake person in Columbia. And is that going to be, let's slow down the process a little. I know you don't like transferring, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. It's my best.
Well, what do you mean, how long is it?
Well, I mean,
It's the same, if you mean the actual technology time transfer, it's the same amount of time as if you were sitting next to each other in cubicles.
okay.
There's no delay. Is that what you mean?
That's kind of what I mean, because it's 23 seconds for, the calls to be answered quickly, just because of how we have it set up, and then it'd be another call back to Columbia, and, I don't want to lose any potential leads because
It's literally as if the person was sitting in the cubicle next to you.
so that seems like the best, right now, the best situation for us.
Right, so imagine if you were on my phone system, you had Ring Central, right? So whether you're transferring the call in the office or you're transferring it to a different extension and they work down the street or in the next state or in another country, it's literally the technologies, it's the same. There's no difference. Because they're all on your phone system, right? If you have Ring Central, everybody's on the same phone system. It's not like you're transferring through different phone systems. Yeah.
If we can identify it as a new caller, can we just direct it directly to?
Yes, that's the goal.
That's 30K, yeah, I mean, that's the investment, we were talking about 30K, yeah,
Yeah, that's the goal.
that's our goal.
Okay, so overcoming objections. This is how you get to 95%, right? So the technology is so you don't lose callers, right? The hang-ups, right? And you make that person feel special and the person who answers the call. But this is how you get to the 95%. So the person says, I don't have time to do this right now. I don't have the money. They asked to speak to a lawyer at the beginning, right? Any one of their objections, I need to talk to my husband first. Whatever the objection is, you need to be training to those objections. That's a script, right? So we have, and you can ask for it and we'll send it to you. And I don't know why I put my name there, because I'm just going to forward you to someone else who's going to send it. I should have changed that. So, but you can email me, or you all have my number, whatever. If you want it, just ask for it, and we'll give you our list.
Hey, Rob, there's a great book. The guy's name is Blunt, B-L-O-U-N-T. It's called Overcoming Objections.
Yeah.
It's really good. I highly recommend it.
Okay.
We rolled it out to the intake team.
Everybody hear that?
Yeah. Jeb Blunt, I think, is B-L-O-U-N-T. He's written a lot of books.
Yeah.
But, he's the real deal.
There you go. So our list is the most common objections that we ever get in the call center, and then the answers to those objections.
Get that in the group chat or a group email?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I can have Sam put it in the gaggle, or yeah, just send it out into Legal Ascend. Yep. So if you make them memorize it, when they hear the objection, they're just going to respond, right? They don't have to think about it. They don't fumble. They just know the answer. So for us, when you go through our academy, that's part of what they're learning, right? They're learning, memorizing all of the objections and how to overcome them. So we couldn't convert, now we're chasing. How many people have that seemed pretty good. So your time to respond, not so good. But most of you seem to have a systematic chase process. Is that true? Do you all have a planned systematic chase process? Yeah, so that's good. You guys did pretty well. So, right, so minimum standard, my opinion, for a chase, 2 calls, 2 texts, and emails, yes or no, I don't care if you email, but as long as you're calling and texting for 7 days, live voice message versus recorded voice messages. We do something different for social and VA. We don't revive. So for social and VA, we revive after 3 weeks. So meaning at the end of 7 days, I'm going to say to you, you know, I understand that you're busy and we don't want to seem like we're harassing you. We're not going to call you again. If you need us, we're always here for you. Feel free to reach out. And then we revive them and call them back and put them through the same process. And now we use what you would call a robo-dialer. So it's basically a predictive dialer. So it's measuring the availability of people in our call center that are assigned to that team. It measures what the answer rate is, and then it just keeps calling and calling and calling based on the volume of who has on the phone, who's not on the phone, and how many, what its predictability rate is for the number of people that answer. And obviously, if they don't answer, then it's just leaving a message. If they do answer, we don't use that for PI. First of all, if somebody doesn't respond to you in 7 days, they hired someone else. But so the problem with a predictive dialer or a robo dialer or auto dialer is there's always a delay, right? So when it goes from the connectivity, if someone answers the phone, there's that probably 0.7 second delay in handing it to the operator. So, but because I'll chase you to death, because I know that Social Security clients, so for instance, they have, let's say, a mental issue. So they had a moment of clarity, they reached out to us, we couldn't convince them to sign, and who knows when their next moment of clarity is going to be. So that's why we just chase them forever, and it works. We probably sign, I don't know off the auto dialer what the percentage is, like 1.5% of the people that we couldn't sign, we sign, which when you're dealing with the volume that we're dealing with, it's significant.
Are your calls, like your 2 calls or 2 texts, are they all like simultaneous? Like I call and then I'll send a text, I'll send an email, and then later in the afternoon I'll do the same thing again, or it's kind of staggered?
It's staggered. Yeah.
I think to add on that would be personalizing your text messages to get the client to respond.
You what?
Personalizing the text message, like the
Yeah.
text template, you know.
Well, all the texts are different.
Okay.
So you don't always get the same message, right? They say different things throughout the
I also
texts.
encourage the team to like just make it a little personal, hey, listen, I saw that this day you were on this accident, just reaching out to you, okay, we're ready to help you are. Just kind of make it a little warm.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. We do too many, it would take too long. I don't want them writing out the text messages, but they're different. So in the beginning, we try to, like in a PI case, it's the sense of urgency, right? So we understand you're in an accident. We want to begin the investigation immediately. I'm sure you understand, right, that witnesses disappear, evidence disappears. We need to start working on this for you right away. And then it just hits different things. There's urgency, there's emotion, that kind of stuff. Yeah, if I tried to let people write those, it would take too long.
You know what, that's a great use for ChatGPT. Write me out a chase sequence.
Yeah.
Personal injury lawyer, somebody contacts me, what I want, 2 texts the first day, 1 the next day, tell me what times I should send them out, this is what and it's gonna give you a whole script, just like that.
You should show us how to do that tomorrow with the prompts. Because the key to ChatGPT, right, is really the right prompts. Yeah.
I had a chief marketing officer, established personal injury firm in Dallas. I have clients that contact me via web form, and we try to reach out to them right away. Please give me, if we don't contact them, please tell me, what messages we should say. The first one should be immediacy, right? We need to get on this right away. We've got an 18-month long-term chase. So a lead comes in and we chase it for 7 days, and then it's a long-term chase. And it goes out, every month or so, and we get, a couple months down the road. And every once in a while, we pick one of those things up.
Yeah.
And we did all our messaging.
You're not calling them for 18 months, right? You're not calling. No.
It's all automated.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we already talked about.
Rob,
Sorry.
your entire length to chase for DI is 7 days?
Yes. Yeah. I think then if we captured their email, they go into a drip campaign, which sends them newsletters and all sorts of stuff, but we're not really chasing them for their initial accident. Yeah.
We've seen people circle back after 7 days. We just go after the 7th day.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you go for 7 solid, and then once on the 14th day, and once on the 21st day. And you're picking people up at 14 and 21?
And it's 2 more texts and 1 more email, so it's 10, 14, and 21. And some people circle back a few weeks later after they get their car repaired or whatever's going on in their life, and the insurance company's giving them a crap offer, or they're just struggling.
And you call them, or you just text them at those?
They'll come back to us and either the text number they've been given on the chase or a phone number that they're on.
So you're calling people at 10, 14, and 21?
No, text, email, text.
Oh, okay.
3 more touches.
Yeah. Well, that's easy. Yeah, I mean, if you're getting results, that makes sense. Well, I'll look at it. Calling probably, I don't think we do, but the text is automated, so yeah, it's easy. Anybody else? Any other thoughts, ideas? Anybody doing anything different? No? So we already talked about your sales team, right? And recruiting, hiring, training the right reps, commissioning your team. So any questions on any of that? Just getting the right people in the right seat, right? That's like key, not just for your intake, but that's key for your law firm, right? It's finding the right people, getting the right people in the right spot. So it's good. So we have marketing people here and we have intake people here. So when there's a problem, right, with the numbers and Mike's screaming at you why the numbers are down, right? So you have to figure out first, is it a marketing issue or is it a call center issue? Because often everybody always wants to scream at the call center. And I'm like, well, do we look at the marketing? Are we off? What's the problem? So what is the issue? Why are the numbers down? And it's not always the numbers are down. Sometimes you're trying something different and there's too many property damage cases coming in. So we're tried a different set of keywords, different Google AdWords, doing something different, and all of a sudden we see a ton of shit coming in that's not really driving cases. So maybe we're getting call volume, but we're not signing enough cases. So people automatically assume, oh, the intake department sucks. What the hell's going on? Why aren't they signing cases? But the reality is we're just not getting the right cases into the call center. So we look at obviously inbound call volume, the form fills and chats, running trend reports, and looking to see how often is the phone ringing, when is the phone ringing, what's coming in, what are people saying, why are the issues off? So is it marketing? Outbound reports, so we look at our contact ratio, right? Percentage of leads we're actually contacting. We look at contacts attempts by division by sales rep. Same day contact ratio, what percent of the leads are we able to contact? Lead pull time, how quickly are you responding to leads? So, and you have to look at it by category, right? So form fills, how the leads are coming in and how long we're taking to get back to them. So that 5-minute rule, I completely agree with Marcus, right? So, but if you're treating a form fill with the same sense of urgency as a phone call, there's no reason why it shouldn't be under 5 minutes. Like if it's all coming into the same system, right? So for us, it comes into Smart Advocate, right? So the form fill comes in, it gets built into the case wizard, so it becomes a case. It comes to the front. Every 60 seconds, RingCentral comes by and picks up the next thing. Because whether or not it's a new form fill coming in or we're just calling people, right? Because we're calling people, our goal is twice a day if we didn't sign them. So that's all generated inside our case management system. That's what's controlling, right, the flow of calls. So RingCentral comes by every 60 seconds and picks up the next thing. And Smart Advocate prioritizes if it's a form fill over our campaign of people we're calling back. So that lead pull time, if you're using an automated system to control the flow of the form fills versus your inbound calls, there's absolutely no reason why it shouldn't be handled in a timely manner. If you're just letting a form fill go to your email, right, and then someone manually has to be remembering to look at their email and be answering the phone, that's why you have a delay, right? So Steve, I'm assuming yours is going to email? Right, so that's a huge problem, right? Because I forget, and if I have a lot of emails coming in, my one form fill automatically gets buried, right? So I get a second email, a third email, but something else. It's not, if I'm not only doing intake and I get other kinds of emails in my system, I had missed that call. That's why if it takes 2 days, I went back and looked at all my emails. Oh shit, I missed this person. Or some of you literally didn't call back. So you didn't follow up whatsoever on the form fill. So that email, if it went into an Outlook inbox, completely got buried or it went into spam. Connected call reports, answer rate, what percentage of calls are you answering, your case wanted rate, your rejected cases, are we rejecting the right cases, which you only know by listening to calls. How many people are actually listening to rejected calls? Awesome. Conversion rate, wanted but rejected, length of calls, right, because you want efficiency. So we have some people in the call center who probably sign in 20 minutes, and we probably have some people who sign, not talking about the fastest people, but there's probably 30 minutes, depending on what type of case they're doing. So for the people who are on the phone too long, we help them learn how to still have empathy, still have compassion, but move the call along faster. How many cases they're signing, are they hitting our minimum standards? And that's it. Sure. So, technology, right? One piece. Coaching your team, hiring the right people, coaching them, overcoming objections, empathy, making sure we're getting to our wanted and signed ratio, and then running reports and making sure we're looking at everything properly. Those are the three real big moving pieces to intake. Somebody has to be looking, right? You have your report cards. You know whether you're doing it or not doing it. So in 6 months, when I do ghost calls again, the goal is we pick something that we're going to improve in our intake center, right? So the goal was you came here 3 things. So if you do all 3 things what Marcus said, and your intake is a problem, that's not my suggestion, right? You should pick something to improve in intake. Whatever it is that you were not doing well or you want to do better, pick something in intake to improve. Pick something in marketing that you want to improve. And if there's something that Joe talks about tomorrow or the AI you get from Michael, pick something there. But we're going to document 3 things for sure, right, that you are going to take back and we're going to focus on in our goals calls that we're implementing. Make sense?